Taun with Utah State University Extension. I'm a horticulturist in Utah County, and I wanted to talk a little bit about field bindweed, or it's commonly known as morning glory, but the proper name is field bindweed, and the reason we call it that is there's some desirable plants that go by the name of morning glory, and we don't want to get them mixed up or disparage the desirable plants as compared to this horrible weed. So field bindweed is a problem for a lot of people, and it gets in your yards and your flower beds and your gardens. And what I want to talk about today is controlling field bindweed in flower beds, because that's one of the hardest places to get rid of it. So what I'm going to be using is, what was suggested to use for this method is Roundup or a very similar product like Kills-All or any of the other store brands will work, but anything with glyphosate in it. That's Glyphosate. So normally Roundup doesn't do a very good job against bindweed. It'll suppress it, it'll yellow it out, it might kill the tops off. But in this particular method I will show you, it actually does an excellent job. I have a small 2-quart sprayer right here, and these are available from most box stores or farm stores or garden centers, and they're running anywhere from $10 to $15. And I do not have any bindweed, or bindweed. Of course I don't have bindweed in here. I don't have any glyphosate or any herbicides in here. This is just straight water, so I'm not using any safety equipment. But when you do this, you need to look at your label and see what clothing you need to wear and if you need gloves or anything else. So that's important to do, but because I'm using water, I am not in this particular situation. So several years ago, former USU Extension Larry Sagers, who also is on the Greenhouse show, taught me a method, and the public method, of killing out bindweed from flower beds by using plastic sacks. And what was recommended is that you spray the bindweed with the poison, or you put on a rubber glove and a cotton glove and dip your hand in a bucket of mix and rub the bindweed and then stuff it inside a sack and then let it sit all day, and that Roundup in there just keeps absorbing and absorbing. Well, that method works, and I'm going to do a version of that, but it's actually against the law to apply Roundup that way because you're using the cotton glove as a pesticide applicator, and it's not approved by the EPA, and you get Roundup or whatever product you're using all over you using that method. And so I've been working with a friend who works for the Utah Department of Agriculture on a method that would be acceptable and keep you a lot safer. So the first step is to get a gallon Ziploc or something similar. You can use twisty ties with sacks or something too, and you gather a clump of bindweed. So I've pulled this out right here, and there's a little more over here, but I'm just going to stick with this. And normally you would have wet this down with Roundup first, but we're going to leave it dry and put it inside of the plastic sack. So you have to do stuffing. And make sure you don't break the stems. That's critical that you don't. So you get that in there, and then you seal the plastic sack and you push that bindweed to one side as far as you can so that the bag isn't open very much. So we'll seal that a little more, and it's kind of hard keeping the weeds out. And here we go. Okay. That's pretty sealed, and so that's the look we have. And so instead of applying that before I put it in the sack, I'm just going to put a really small hole in the bag, and then I've got my sprayer here that normally would have the glyphosate spray, and this is just water again, and I stick it in here and I apply it inside the bag and make sure it doesn't come out. And so once that is thoroughly wet in there, it's dry on the outside, I don't want to leave that sack on the ground because the sun will penetrate it, and it acts like a greenhouse, and it'll heat up to 140 or 150 degrees inside that bag, and it will cook literally cook the bindweed. And so because I now have 100% humidity in there, I like to get an old piece of cardboard or an old towel or something and just lay it over the top. And I might have to put some rocks on there if I'm windy, and I'll leave that all day long. And that towel will keep the bag cool and keep the bindweed in there from scorching. And then what this will do is cause the bindweed to absorb glyphosate all day long. And because that's permanently wet in there, the glyphosate just keeps absorbing and absorbing. And you can actually do a really good job and get a really good kill on your bindweed in your flower beds, and you just have to pull it out of your plants. And as long as you're spraying into that sack and keeping everything dry, this is a lot safer method, but a very effective method of killing bindweed, or at least heavily suppressing bindweed in your flower beds. Thank you for watching, and you can follow us on the Utah State University Extension website, on Facebook, and we also have a new podcast called Homegrown Horticulture that you can subscribe to, and you can find it on Instagram and Facebook at Homegrown Horticulture Podcast.